I mean, that's why it's important that when it comes to medical, things that are, life-saving services, that they're not corrupted by politics and things of that nature.
I think, COVID in itself has showed us one thing. It's once you take off the boundaries that FDA puts, you can do some pretty amazing things.
Yeah.
Like, we got a vaccine that, for all intents and purposes, is okay for what we can see.
Right, relatively speaking, it seems to be working for the most.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that, but it seems to be working for the most part.
And as time goes on, they'll improve it, and it got done within a year.
Yeah.
The fastest timeline for a vaccine before that was 4 years.
Yeah. And even that's, I mean, we were just saying, 10 years is the typical timeline
for a drug timeline,
just regular drugs.
So
not even vaccines.
So it's not like we're like, how do we fix this problem? It's like, obviously states can't, unfortunately, like we've already said, it has to be done at a federal level. But we've seen what happens when the FDA kind of gets pushed aside to a limited role in this.
Yeah.
We get something done within a year.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I mean, we can give some credit, not credit, but there was a lot of people working on vaccines. It was almost a whole world kind of thing. But still, in general, the vaccines that came out of the United States, which was 2/3?
J&J, Moderna.
Yeah.
What's the other one that was giving pregnant women
Pfizer.
blood clots?
Was that Pfizer?
No, that was Johnson & Johnson. I think that was giving people blood clots.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah,
I just want to give a big shout out to Fauci, man. That guy.
Yeah.
I was wondering how long before you brought Fauci up.
We won't go into that.
Not right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's not like you have to bang our heads against the wall and be like, how do we fix it? It's give the FDA less power over these.
them.
Yeah.
Take all their power.
And we might see decreased drug prices. And people might be like, America uses so much drugs. You guys are always taking drugs. Yeah, we are. We have a pretty good life over here.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's just taking insulin. Some people have things, like heart conditions that are born with. Some people have seizures.
Yeah.
Things that unfortunately they have, but they're born with and they need to take drugs for. And it would be nice if they didn't pay a shit ton of money for it.
Yeah. I mean,
especially with our
one of the things I was reading on whenever we were looking up stuff for this bill was just the effects of some of the regulations and the things we've been talking about. And one of the major effects, I guess, is that because there's a certain regulatory burden to enter to create a drug, and it's the same for basically any drug, that the amount of that burden. And so what happens is that the companies are only willing to shell out that kind of money to develop either things that a lot of people are going to use and that they're going to make their money back on, or if it's something that's just groundbreaking, there's nothing else like it. So then a lot of cures that could be being developed for some rare conditions end up just on the back burner because no one's willing to shell out the money up front to develop this drug because there's not that many people buying it.
Right, they're more interested in the profit margins.
Yeah.
which is
So
understandable.
that's a pretty bad consequence.
Yeah, very bad.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anybody else want any topics on here? This is kind of just like
I just jotted some notes down because I know, there's going to be some people that even despite what we've seen in the last year and despite, everything we've just said, not that, we covered healthcare. That's, we'd be out here.
that could be a whole episode topic right there.
That could literally be all we talk about for the rest of this podcast. And we still wouldn't figure it out.
Another topic I definitely want to come back to is the whole price controls thing.
Yeah,
some other
that's
episodes.
good. Well, this will be a good segue.
Well, I was just want to say, because in Florida, I mean, this comes up every hurricane season with, the price gouging for water, well, so-called price gouging for water and gas, and generator prices skyrocket, plywood prices skyrocket every time the hurricane season comes around. And, there's always a lot of complaints surrounding that. So, yeah, we should definitely do an episode on that.
Yeah, I just want to talk about some, because like I just said, a lot of people are going to want to talk about socialized healthcare and whatever, and how, we should model our healthcare system on Canada, for instance, or Germany, or, whatever the example you want to give. But a lot of people don't realize, yeah, sure, the systems in other countries at a surface level seem pretty nice, right? I mean, cheap healthcare, it's all price control. You're not paying outrageous prices. The average wait time in Canada between a referral of treatment, so that's you going to the doctor saying, hey, you have AIDS, you need this. Well, maybe this is a bad example because it's just medication, but the average wait time between a referral of treatment and you actually getting that treatment is 23 weeks.
It's understandable.
That's a long time.
I'm sure no one's died between that time.
Yeah.
What is that? That's almost 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's outrageous. Yeah. Imagine you go to the doctor and you have some crazy condition. They're like, yeah, we'll get you in 7 months.
Yeah.
Imagine if that happened in America. What, like,
yeah.
You'd be dumbfounded. You'd be like, what the fuck?
In Florida when you can't get an MRI next week.
I know.
Yeah, I was just
the longest I've waited was like a month for something.
My grandmother in Canada, she had an MRI just this year, and she told me that it took like 2.5 months, and the doctor was like nonstop telling her how lucky she was that she got in so soon and stuff. Like, could you imagine waiting 2 months for an MRI in the U.S. and your doctor's sitting there telling you how lucky you are?
That's
like
a slap in the face.
I mean, that's a slap in the face for them. Like, your doctor's sitting there telling you how lucky you are. You already prepaid their freaking paycheck.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can't imagine that.
And then, then in Germany, anybody making less than $64,000 a year, they participate in a government healthcare system, much like any other socialized healthcare system. But Germany does it a little bit different. They fund it on a quarterly basis. But the problem is the system is like regularly running out of money by the end of the quarter. So what you're seeing is, because it's a budgeted system, at the end of the quarter, you can't get, like, it's impossible to get anything done.
Wow.
You're just not getting your health.
You walk up to the clinic and there's a close sign on it.
Yeah, well, it's just like a
they're all inside just avoiding eye contact.
Yeah, it's just a backdoor rationing, is it not? I mean,
yeah, it is.
This is how much we have for this quarter,
right?
And once we hit that money, you're not getting healthcare. Sorry, we don't have money.
They're at lunch for the next 2 months.
Just playing bingo.
Yeah. Well, I know maybe I didn't. I know I talked to you. I thought I talked to you about it, Chris, but a couple, maybe it was like a month and a half, 2 months ago, I stumbled across, it was actually a conversation with, I believe Michael Malice or Dave Smith. I don't know. One of the two, because, they're, I love those guys. Those guys are great. But they interviewed with these doctors from South Florida. They invented, it's called, direct primary care.
Yeah.
It's the name is kind of self-explanatory. It's a direct healthcare system directly with your provider. Right. So it's much like you can reduce it down to a Netflix subscription. You pay X amount of dollars a month, and I think the average was in between $50 and $100, depending on your situation.
Which is less than most people pay for a healthcare.
Absolutely,
plan.
Absolutely, probably.
Insurance in general,
fraction. And it's all spelled out. You pay the subscription. It tells you exactly what's included. You have unlimited access to your healthcare provider. And if you get anything else, it's you know exactly what you're paying.
Yeah.
Right.
I think most of them have, I mean, that's like a beautiful illustration.
Way too much sense.
I mean, it's a beautiful illustration of what free market can do.
Yeah. A lot of them work together too. So then, like, if one of them doesn't have all the services you want, you can go to the other person's
right. It's like a network.
But yeah, they list out all the services that they have and what's included. You know exactly what you're getting, and a lot of them have MRI machines and like blood work labs and all that kind of stuff. Stuff that sometimes you have to jump through hoops with your health insurance to get. You can just walk in and be like, "Hey, I want an MRI," and then walk in the next day and be like, "I want another one."
Yeah.
And they'll be I don't advise that, but I guess you paid for it.
Right? So any of our listeners struggling to find affordable healthcare, look into these things because they exist. Not only do they exist, but they're way more common than you'd imagine.
Especially in Florida.
Yeah, especially in Florida. I mean, it's where it was birthed. But I remember I have a friend who's living out in North Carolina right now, and she was venting to me about her health situation, and it was kind of ironic not ironic, but it was kind of crazy how it happened, because I literally just finished listening to this podcast, And then we were talking about it, and I was like, "Yo, you need to look into this." Sure enough, she's hooked up with it now. So
That's awesome.
it's cool.
I think Kansas was another state where one of the people who came up with this system originated. So
right.
for all our fans out in Kansas, you guys
Yeah,
check out.
because fuck, we got a lot of them.
I mean, that's just a great example of like, even with, which is not an excuse for it, but like with all this burden of regulation and like government just like putting its disgusting cock all over the healthcare system, like people can come through and like make these amazing like, you know, semi-free market, you know, innovations and like actually help people,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
And I mean, from some of the interviews I've listened with these people, I mean, these guys are true warriors. Like, they just get shit on by the government constantly. They try to shut them down.
I'm sure.
And they work hard to keep these businesses open. So,
Yeah.
I mean, as somebody with no health insurance, so like, like,
Well, this is for you then. You need to look into that.
No, I mean, I'm good. I take vitamin D. But
and Daddy D.
but no, so like, you know, blood work is something where everybody's like always like, oh, it's so hard. You know, you gotta go to the doctor. You gotta give them a reason to, like, through whatever loophole. There's online companies that can like that call themselves your doctor, and you go on that website and you can order blood work through any like Quest Diagnostics or any local place you can go into, and it's like pretty affordable. Like I've done it multiple times, and it's like $20 for a simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you sign up, you walk in, and it's just done. I mean, so again, there is like multiple, like there's other areas you can go to, like the thing Nick's talking about. You look online. You know, there is ways that if you're struggling or like you're just tired of dealing with insurance companies, which makes complete sense. You know, you can find things that will be helpful.
The how the insurance companies are involved in healthcare it's absolutely nuts.
That's just
The whole idea that you don't have a fucking clue what you're paying for is.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody can look at that system and be like, that's reasonable.
It's like the
that
Canadian
seems
system.
that seems reasonable.
It's like the Canadian system where they negotiate the prices, except they do it on a case-by-case basis and behind closed doors.
Yeah, you have no clue what it ends up coming out to be. It's nuts.
yeah.
And that's not to say, we, obviously have our own problems.
I mean, that's just something where insurance, from what I can remember, not that I was born, but like when it was made, it was insurance. It was like, hey, you put a little bit of money in. If something bad happens, then you have this like company that like, hey, you've been paying this long. We can help you out when this big thing happens.
Right.
Now, for the past 30 years, it's become this thing where it's like that's your primary care area, like where you pay through everything, where it's like not supposed to be.
Right,
Like-
it's supposed to be a backup plan.
Correct. It's like
In a
through
sense.
government intervention, it's become this thing where
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like a middleman, and they're like empowered by the
and
government.
they love it because they get
Oh, yeah.
fucking tons of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that podcast episode where they, have these guys on with the healthcare system, they said that like 70% of their costs were administrative costs.
Oh, that's not surprising.
Yeah, isn't that nuts? I read something
Sounds
private
like every charity ever.
private providers. So after the Affordable Care Act, went into place, it forced a lot of these physicians and smaller clinics to like consolidate. You see Health First buying up all these, smaller physicians, Stewart Medical, and they're a little bit bigger in Sebastian. What was the Cleveland? They just bought Vero Beach.
Yeah, for your area.
Yeah, private providers are responsible for $39 billion a year just to simply comply with administrative aspects of regulatory compliance in the healthcare system.
Hey, at least not 40 billion.
Right. I mean, if we're rounding.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And I think a lot of people, when you start talking about how the FDA and different regulatory systems, USDA, different stuff like that, and you say, okay, if you get rid of them, what replaces them? How do you what do you do? And I think there's a lot of different examples of that with different like certifications, like organic certifications, things like that have come out recently, where it's like it doesn't have to. It can be a private system and still do the same thing, maybe even better.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Like something
Yeah.
that, and I think like for instance, Whole Foods does something like that, where they're organic. They don't go through like
They have their own kind of classification.
Exactly.
I'm all for that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And even like when we do coffee, you know, like when we order coffee, like like raw coffee from different places, like a lot of these places are completely organic just by the fact that like they can't afford pesticides.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they don't have the stamp, so they're technically not organic.
Yeah.
People want that, you know.
Yeah, there's a place in Fort Pierce they do the same thing.
Yeah.
They're I mean, I guess there's no true way of knowing. You have to kind of I guess that's no, I'm not even going to say that's the benefit of having federal regulation because that's never a benefit. But this place in Fort Pierce, you have to kind of trust them, but they're all organic and they can't, you know, they can't call themselves organic because
Right.
they're not going to, they're not paying.
Well, they have to pay like a ridiculous
Pay
amount
the
of money.
fee.
Yeah.
And you want to
Pay
go
the
there,
troll toll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go there and be able to buy something that's affordable.
Right.
And you can't do it because if they were to get that certification, they would have to jack their prices way up.
Right.
You know.
See, and I think you bring up a good point that why couldn't we have a private sort of regulatory system, not regulatory in the sense of you have to abide by these laws, but a privatized regulatory system, because then you have a broad range of certifications, not regulations, certifications.
Yeah.
You'd have a broad range of certifications where, you know, if you want to and you can afford to pay for the top certification, you can.
Right.
Or if not, if you want to get something that you know is kind of middle of the road, you know it's organic, you know, okay, maybe it's not, you know, the top of the line, but I'm not paying twice the price for it, and I'm happy here.
And think about the situation where it's dire.
Right.
Right?
We're talking healthcare.
Yeah,
exactly.
you're talking about you're in a situation, healthcare, where you're in a situation where you have cancer, and in order to take on the burden of whatever chemotherapy or whatever you're going through, it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. But
it's
and you
life
don't
or
have
death.
that money. Yeah, it is. Yeah, but if you were to go like like you said, like a different, like a more privatized certification, that's cheaper.
Yeah,
because it doesn't cost so much money to feed into all the regulations that the FDA has. Would you not do it?
Not, and to add to that, I would be more inclined to trust a privatized, more free market certification than a government funded one. Because what does the market do if it turns out that certification is bullshit?
Right.
Where the government, if their certification is bullshit, guess what? They're still getting paid.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't give a fuck because they're getting your tax money.
Hey, sorry about it.
We fucked up. So,
you know, if you're looking at like a pushback to like that private like certification route, would be like people like, you know, I think you guys might mention like, how do you trust them? And like, you know, well, how do you know they're not like lying and all that stuff? It's like, well, how do you know the guy that comes out to check your house that your permit was done correctly? How do you know he's not going to like just look at your house for 2 seconds and walk away and not make sure everything's done correctly?
Right.
Like you don't. Like there's people.
I'd argue you'd know that he's more honest than the federal government because the market would force him out.
That's
Otherwise,
correct.
If he's giving bad services, he's not going to be in business long.
Well, I mean, look at Yelp, right? I mean, hate it or like it, mostly now probably it's all right. But like, you know, you would have a Yelp.
Karens.
Yeah, you would have a Yelp thing where it's like, you know, I have the whatever turquoise certification on my whatever it is, right? And you feel like, oh, this certification's like, you know, it has 3 stars out of 5. So like that's like, you know, like, all right, you're getting like middle of the ground kind of area. You want the like platinum certification, then it's 5 stars. Yeah. And that makes complete sense.
Yeah, and that kind of supports what I was just saying about having the, you know, a tiered system where if you have these private certifications,
like
you're going to have steps.
The market itself will lay them out in the order that they are appropriate.
That's adequate, right?
Yeah,
that
the other
sense.
thing that I think would be positive would be that the certification agencies themselves could like specialize, as opposed to like the FDA, which just claims to be the all-knowing
of everything.
Messiah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, another thing to go with what Book just said is like, you know, human responsibility for themselves. Like I should be responsible for what I do with my own body.
100%.
Right? So if I want to take that risk to go with a private, certification.
You should be able to.
Why am I allowed to?
Mm-hmm.
I know we're getting into the.
No, but I mean that's what this podcast.
But
no,
that's
what,
the reality.
Yeah.
Right? Why can't I make that decision with my body?
Yeah.
Because the government says that I can't.
You.
Yeah. Exactly. Because we know better than you.
Exactly.
We know what's better for you than you know.
Yeah.
What's better.
If you try to put that in your body, I'm going to lock you in a dog crate.
Okay.
And leave you there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if you don't comply, I'll just shoot you.
Yeah.
Because I care that much about you, Cameron.
You're getting sassy. You're getting sassy over here. With
Hey
the
man,
guns.
got 2 bourbons in me. I'm ready for my third.